a noise. It was crunching and banging and slashing.
In a thunderstorm, you don't know if you're going to lose the guys. I was freaking out thinking, you know, this helicopter's going in the water.
We all just knew we were dead.
From the Weather Channel, this is Storm Stories with meteorologist Jim Cantore.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantore, and welcome to Storm Stories. Commercial fishermen live risky lives, often defying the elements to bring home the best catch. Well, in September 2000, 3 fishermen from South Carolina came face to face with the hazards of their business and found themselves battling for their lives. September 28, 2000. The day dawns clear and calm in Myrtle's Inlet, South Carolina, a fishing village 14 miles south of Myrtle Beach. The town is a haven for career fishermen, like 32-year-old Captain Eddie Clark. Eddie, who has fished half his life, feels more comfortable on the water than on shore.
Anything can happen on land. Ain't a whole lot really could happen out there.
Eddie heads 50 miles offshore for a 4-day fishing trip, leaving behind his 2 children and wife Tamara, who is 9 months pregnant. He's joined by 2 crewmen, 45-year-old Biff Gardner and 27-year-old Manny Rodriguez. Their boat, the Still Crazy, is a 34-foot vessel, one of an 11-boat fleet owned by the largest fishery in town. The trip begins well. On their first day, they catch 900 pounds of fish. But the next day, the strong flow around a large high-pressure system begins churning up the seas. Eddie and his crew find themselves smack dab in a roiling storm.
And it picked up from no wind to 20 to 25 knots. And as the day got later and later in the day, then it picked up to 30 to 40 right at dark, northeast, full gale.
Weather reports predict the storm will only last 24 hours. The crew is unconcerned.
It's nothing that we haven't endured in the past before, and in the boat we were in, it was workable weather. It just got a little rough.
It was just going to last a day, and it would be gone, and we could fish 2 or 3 more pretty days.
As night draws near, the fishermen pull in the lines and batten down the hatches. They try to sleep as the boat rolls up and down in 15-foot waves. All of a sudden, Eddie hears a terrifying noise.
At first, it sounded like another wave, and then it just kept getting louder and louder, and stuff started cracking and breaking and metal, and I jumped up and looked out, and all I could see was the side of a big old ship.
It's an enormous freighter. Unable to see in the stormy darkness, the ship has just slammed headlong into the Still Crazy. Below deck, Biff Gardner is jolted awake.
It was a noise, it's a hard one to describe. Wood smashing, fiberglass crunch. The boat was just being twisted and bent and squeezed together. It threw me out of my rack across to the other side, and I hit my head on my eye, and it knocked me out.
After a few seconds, Biff comes to and scrambles upstairs. Water is pouring into the boat. The bow of the Still Crazy is sinking. Now, waist high in water, Eddie frantically tries to radio for help, but the radio is dead. He orders Biff to deploy the life raft.
When I looked up there, it was gone, and we all just kind of stood there, and the 3 of us looked at each other, and it was like, that's doomed, that's the end now.
Nobody said nothing for, it seemed like forever, but we all just knew we were dead.
Suddenly, off in the distance, one of the men sees a strobe light blinking. It's the life raft. which activated automatically when it hit the raging waters. Eddie sends the men to the raft. Then he grabs the E-Perb, a satellite distress beacon. It's their only hope for rescue. Eddie clutches the E-Perb tightly, struggling to swim through the churning waters with his free hand.
I was a little over halfway to the raft and I couldn't swim anymore. I was fixing to let the E-Perb go.
Biff sees Eddie floundering and jumps in the water to help.
I finally heard Biff say, "I hear Eddie, I'm going to get him." When I heard him say he was coming to get me, I held on to it.
We had a rope in there, and I told him, "Don't let go of this." And I held on to one end of it because I was going to make sure, no matter what, I didn't want nobody to let go of anything.
Exhausted, Eddie finally makes it to the 8-foot life raft. He turns on the E-Perb. The three men huddle together, trying not to panic as the raft is battered by 40-mile-per-hour wind, pelting rain, and 20-foot waves. Eddie's been shipwrecked before, 8 years earlier on a similar fishing trip. He assures his crew that they will be rescued.
Biff had a bad cut on his head, and between him and Manny, they weren't much help, so I had to keep both of them straight.
He had his wits about him. I was being so quiet. He was afraid that because of my injury that I was going to go to sleep, and he didn't want me to do that.
Somebody's got to stay in the right frame of mind. If not, everybody'd be dead.
By now, it's just after midnight. Back on the mainland near Charleston, it's peaceful at the Coast Guard's Johns Island facility. Then, an urgent call. The Still Crazy's distress signal has been picked up, about 50 miles offshore. The weather radar shows the raft is caught in intense thunderstorms. The on-call crew springs into action. 26-year-old co-pilot Sean Morrissey has been flying for the Coast Guard for a year. He knows the strong storms won't stop the rescue.
There's thunderstorms, but there's 3 lives that could potentially be saved. I mean, that's not even a decision. We're definitely going to go.
This is the kind of call that 25-year-old rescue swimmer Jason Mathers dreams about.
You're getting to do what you trained for. You're getting to do the things that you went to school for.
Morrissey and Mathers hustle to the helicopter with 2 other crewmen, pilot Lance Belbin and flight mechanic Curtis Wynn. They head into the heart of the storms.
You can see that there's just this wall of storms. There was lightning. You could hear the radios crackling when the thunder and lightning was going off around you. It just steadily got worse as we got out there.
The crew relies on a sophisticated in-flight computer and night vision goggles to see through the blinding rain and pitch black darkness. Finally, after an hour, a blinking light comes into view. It's the life raft. In the blustering wind, Sean's co-pilot tries to stabilize the helicopter near the raft. Without any light to guide him, it's a dangerous maneuver.
Anytime you're flying a helicopter at night, without a reference as something to look at, you can't really tell that you're moving. You no longer have any visual references that say you're moving.
By the time the chopper moves into position, the raft is out of view. The chopper circles around for another approach. Down below, the fishermen can hear the helicopter. Biff tries to flag them down.
I heard him coming, and we saw him coming, so to let them know where we were at, I started shooting flares at him.
But the glaring light from the flare whites out the night vision goggles and blinds the pilot.
I got completely whited out with this flare. Give me an HSI, please.
The helicopter vainly tries 5 times to make a clean approach. With each attempt, it loses more and more of its fuel supply.
Usually when you shoot your approach to the water, it works. So it was getting frustrating, and the hard part, especially I was noticing, each approach, the fuel we had was decreasing.
Just then, the chopper's low fuel light flashes. Sean Morrissey's co-pilot says they must go back.
We're going to get gas and come back down. Try this again.
Down on the raging ocean, Eddie Clark and his crew watch helplessly as their only hope begins to fly away. September 30th, 2000. 50 miles off the coast of South Carolina, a freighter ship has crashed into the vessel Still Crazy, leaving 3 fishermen stranded. A Coast Guard helicopter attempts a rescue, but is forced to turn back when its fuel supply runs dangerously low.
Got this warning light flashing in our face. My thought is to get over, get some gas.
The crew is troubled as they begin the half-hour ride back to the nearest refueling station.
When we had to go back for fuel, I was just extremely frustrated, disappointed, upset. The aircraft was quiet for about 5 minutes as we were heading out, not knowing what we were going to do. I mean, we knew we'd get gas, we knew we'd be back, but, you know, in a thunderstorm, you don't know if you're going to lose the guys.
By now, the fishermen have been in the violent ocean for 3 hours. The waves are cresting at 25 feet. Biff Gardner believes his one chance at survival has slipped away.
I don't understand. I mean, they come right there up on us, and I'd be trying to shoot flares at them, and they'd be shining a spotlight on us. And I'm thinking they're not seeing me. They're not seeing me.
When they left, I already knew they had to go get more fuel. So I told Manny and Biff, they'll be back.
Then some unexpected help appears on the horizon. It's another commercial freighter sent by the Coast Guard to try and rescue the fishermen.
So we was happy. So we went out of our way. We were trying to get to them, and they were trying to find us.
But as the huge ship nears the raft, the men grow nervous. It's too close for comfort.
They're probably 40 yards away, and they're turning. And me and Biff are looking at him. I'm looking at Biff, he looked at me, and I'm like, this is not going to work.
An enormous wave hits the freighter, and the raft is sucked under the ship's stern. For the second time that night, the fishermen are run over by a ship.
The only thing I could think of was, what in the hell just happened? Ship landed on the raft and pushed us and the raft completely under the water.
It went like this, and it created such a vacuum that us being so close and being in such a small little thing sucked us up underneath of it. And I was going, not again, here we go again.
It didn't seem like it lasted for a few seconds. And all I could think about was getting out.
Eddie and Manny resurface, but Biff is still trapped under the stern.
And all I could hear was the propellers, and they're whooshing noise, whoosh, 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 and coming closer and closer.
We're like looking for Biff. We're like looking for Biff. We started hollering.
With luck on his side, Biff swims between the menacing propellers. He resurfaces behind the boat and calls out to his mates. They swim back to the life raft, which has popped out from under the ship.
I couldn't, I don't know. When I heard him holler my name, I knew he was all right. And we went over to make sure he got to the raft.
It seemed like it lasted a lifetime, but at the same time, it was like in a blink of an eye, and it was all over with.
Reunited on the raft, the 3 fishermen wait once again, praying they'll be rescued before their luck runs out. 90 minutes later, the Coast Guard is back on the scene. The freighter is still circling the raft in case the Coast Guard needs further assistance. The rain has let up, but the waves are still churning. Swimmer Jason Mathers prepares for a challenging rescue.
Knowing that I was having to get ready to go out the door and swim in 25-foot seas, I was excited. My adrenaline's going. In fact, my whole body is just shaking with adrenaline.
But as Jason suits up, calamity strikes again.
I put on one fin and I put on my second fin and my strap breaks on my fin. And I just sat there and I kind of, my mouth hung open.
Swimming without a fin in 25-foot waves would be extremely difficult. Luckily, Jason finds extra fin straps in his bag.
All right, boys, here we go. All right.
Jason is lowered into the water. The rescue basket follows. He swims about 25 yards to the raft and finally meets the crew of the Still Crazy.
I got to the raft and the captain, seeing that I swam the short distance I did, but he said, "Wow, you must be tired." You know, and it was kind of like a comic relief at that point. And at that point, I felt like they were doing pretty good, you know, as they were able to joke around.
Roger, we have 3 POV. Everybody's here. Everybody's in good shape.
When he come to get me, he come and he asked if everybody was all right. I was glad to see him.
Jason first pulls Manny Rodriguez into the basket. He's raised safely onto the aircraft. Jason returns to the raft for Biff. But this rescue doesn't go as planned. He's holding the rescue basket with one hand when it's suddenly wrenched away. He looks up in horror. The nearby freighter has blocked the wind the helicopter needs to stay airborne. Now the chopper is falling from the sky.
I was freaking out thinking, you know, this helicopter's going in the water. I'm going to be the only one left. You know, to be able to save these guys now. And my heart just sank into my stomach and I was scared. It felt like we lost the wind and it felt like something was hitting us from above. It just starts to shake, gets rough. And you can also feel it in the seat of your pants, feel it in your stomach that you're getting a little bit light and the helicopter's descending.
From the life raft, Captain Eddie Clark watches the helicopter plunge toward the massive waves.
You could see the helicopter start to drop. I thought they were going to hit the ocean.
It's a stormy night in September 2000. The Coast Guard has just rescued one shipwrecked fisherman off the coast of South Carolina. Just as the second man is about to be lifted out of the water, the Coast Guard chopper loses altitude. In mere seconds, the helo plunges from 45, 35 to 20 feet. With waves licking the bottom of the helo, the pilot boosts the engine and stabilizes the chopper.
I mean, probably within a second and a half, he had power applied. Things happen very, very quickly when you're hovering over the water.
Swimmer Jason Mathers gets back to work. This time, he's able to reel in Biff Gardner and Captain Eddie Clark.
I knew it was finally over when we got in the helicopter house, and I knew right then that it was all. We were going to go home, and how we lived through it, I don't know.
After 4 harrowing hours stranded in the raging sea, all 3 fishermen are safely on board and headed back to dry land. 6 weeks after the rescue, the Coast Guard crew receives the Coast Guard Air Medal.
This is the kind of case that makes you join the Coast Guard, but then when you're at home at night with your wife and you just think about your own mortality and how close it came, it does give you a bit of a shudder. There's a part of me that hopes that I don't have to get into that kind of situation again, because I found myself kind of second guessing, is this something that I really want to do for the next 20 years? But then after it's all said and done, you're like, of course.
A few days after the rescue, wreckage from the Still Crazy is recovered near Murrells Inlet. Captain Eddie Clark and Biff Gardner eventually return to fishing. On the surface, life is back to normal. Yet the fishermen are still haunted by their near-death experience.
I don't like to think back on it, and none of my friends that I've known since it's happened, nobody ever brings it up, and we never really talk about it.
I spent 8 months before I could even think about working. Never sleep good. I went for months with nightmares. I finally got over the nightmares. but I still think about it all the time.
Even so, Eddie has managed to keep the promise he made to his wife 3 years before the accident.
She was always worried about the ocean and the fall in the winter when it's real bad, about me not coming home. I said, you don't have to worry about that. I said, I promise I'll never let the ocean take me.
The ship that hit the Still Crazy has never been found. The weather was so bad that night that the Coast Guard believes that the freighter may not have even seen the small fishing boat on its radar. For Storm Stories and the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori.